First and second chapters are the most important in that this is what we came to learn. Everything else we've actually covered in many other ways, so we will get through this buyer consultation. So we're going to teach you today how to set the goals for your buyer appointment. What is it you want to accomplish? What it is that they're going to want to accomplish? How to do this in a successful way for all parties, and then understand the importance of that buyer agency agreement. The all-important buyer agency agreement. You guys are going to be ahead of the curve on this by 6 months, because you're going to start doing these right away, right? Of course you are. Thank you. You're all going to move ahead and do that. So the goals of the counseling session, you need to be online with what they're going to want. They want what? What do you think? They just want a bunch of information. Your goal is to gain a client, to gain their trust, right? So up here, it is telling you that. It says we need people skills in order to do that. And after talking to all of you in this room, y'all got people skills. They're different from one another, but y'all got people skills. And then a knowledge of the laws and policies of your office, the laws of the state, and of your ethics. Knowing those things. So your goals might be a little bit different than what they're thinking about, right? You want to be able to build rapport. How do we build rapport? Remember we talked about when you go to a party, who do you talk to? How do you build rapport with people?
Frog. Smile.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first one.
Frog.
Frog. I thought that's what you said, and I didn't know what you meant, Irina, so what do you mean by frog?
There's another acronym.
Family.
Recreation, occupation, and
Dreams.
goals.
It's Ford.
Or.
Okay.
I think there's a few different acronyms.
Different.
I know.
She does Ford, we do Ford.
Maybe goals.
I think it's goals.
I think if you do frog, then it'd be
It's
goals.
Okay, thank you, Irina. So we have,
That's easier to remember.
she's saying that we discuss family, recreation, occupation, and goals. Vanessa was saying Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Same thing. Oh, let's talk about your frog. I have a Ford, so I might start talking about my car, but never know.
I think if you just ask people questions about them, people love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
You just a couple open-ended questions and they'll just start going.
That's right.
That's right,
Down to
Vanessa.
30
Keyword
Open-ended
open-ended.
questions, not yes or no questions. Yes or
Yes.
no's don't build rapport,
Let them
right?
do all the
And
talking.
remember we said yesterday, Nicole, that the one who's asking the questions is the one who's in control. And I like to ask a lot of questions. My husband will even say, are you putting him through 20 questions? Or he'll apologize to the person I'm talking to, going, sorry, she's got to do her 20 questions. And they laugh. But I build rapport with that warm chatter we talked about yesterday. I'm really good at chit-chat and getting to know people that way. But I will say that I stay on purpose with my counseling appointments. But also, I've already checked them out on Facebook. I have found out that they're into hunting or fishing or ballet. That way I can find some area of commonality. So even if I have none, I will find someone I know that I know somebody that, that knows somebody that does what you do. Just trying to find areas of commonality, learn about them, and then showcase our services. What are we going to do? What services are we going to provide to them? That is one of our goals. We want to demonstrate our value. What do we bring to the table that's going to make them want to work with us? What value are we going to bring? Because you may not be the first agent they've talked to. So you want to make sure they understand what you're going to do for them. Learn your buyer's needs. What are their finances? Now, they're not always willing to talk about that right away. One of the things that I've adjusted in my appointment is I don't say, have you been pre-approved? And they may say yes. What's comfortable for you for a monthly payment? Instead of how much do you qualify for? They can qualify for $500,000, but they don't want that much of a house payment. So I'll say, what's a comfortable house payment for you? What would work for your finances? So that I don't take you into a house too high. Just because the bank says you qualify for that, we might be able to find you something a little bit less. Would that work for you? And then I nod. My husband hates that. He says, because he can't do this when I'm doing this. Because you all follow along with me. Vanessa, thank you. I was nodding and Vanessa's all right with me. You got it. Women tend to nod when we agree. Men tend to nod when they agree with you. Women nod to give men a visual that we're paying attention. Doesn't mean we agree with you, just means we're listening. So just so you know, it's a trait. Help keep the buyers realistic in their expectations. My job is to manage expectations. We talked a lot about expectations yesterday. Decide if you want to work with them. I've had clients hand it to me that someone else didn't want to work with. That doesn't mean I was much better. But sometimes just a change of faces can still get the transaction closed. And I've done that. We had a very high I agent on our team. She was working with an extremely high C, analytical and they just were not seeing eye to eye. And it had gotten too personal friendly, just in a friendly way, not in a bad way, but just she went out on their boat with them and it just kind of got too friendly. And when it came time for business, he walked all over her. And that then happened with me. And so she handed him off to me and we got him closed. And he wasn't pickle, he was really difficult to work with. But we got it closed. So sometimes it's not anybody's doing anything wrong, it's just communication. So she wanted to work with him, but it ended up that it wasn't a good fit for them. Make sure that you get your representation agreement. That's one of the biggest goals of this as well. And then the other goal that you have in this is to help them find the right home. But their goals might be a little different, right? Their first goal is to get acquainted with the real estate industry. Their first goal is to figure out, how does this work? And what's nice is they ask really basic questions, so you sound brilliant. No matter how long you've been in this business, the questions they're asking make you sound smart. When I didn't have an answer to something, when I was at that golf course community, they'd ask me a question, I go, the way you ask that question, I'll bet my broker could give you a better answer than me. Or I bet my broker could answer it better, or could address that particular issue with you really well. And I would call my broker in, and then I would listen to what she said, and then the next time I could answer that question. So I never was worried about bringing somebody in that knew the answer better, but I said, the way you ask that question, I'll bet she could answer it better. As opposed to, well, I don't know, let me get someone, right? Because you're the professional. They also want to learn what the services are that we provide. What are we going to do for them that they can't do? They've been online, they've been Googling how to buy a house. They're wanting to know what we can do. We have the keys to the airplane. We have the keys to the houses, right? Without those keys, they might think there's less value. And there are movements around the country to get rid of multiple listing services. We want to make sure we keep those keys. They want to learn market conditions, which we talked about yesterday. How's the market? That's what everybody wants to know. Learn about search and the buying process. They want to know how this is all going to come together for them. How do they search? They want to decide if they want to work with you. They may not want to work with you either. And they may say, we're just looking around right now. I might say, hey, I can refer you to another agent, that's just fine. Or if I don't want to work with them, I'll say, since you've come in, my schedule is just a little bit tight compared to what you're going to need. So let me refer you to this agent who's going to be able to have more time to work with you. That way I'm not saying, you are a creep and I will never speak to you again. We want to make sure we're giving them positivity, saying, hey, there's somebody, and someone else may meet their needs better. Truly, I may not be that person. I may not be the person for what they're looking for. But if they're doing land, Nicole, you send them to me. And then the ultimate goal is to work together to find them the right property. And it says home here, but remember, buyer's agents find business opportunities, we find commercial properties, we find raw land, we find mobiles and parks. Just remember, it's the right place for them, whatever it is they're looking for. Yes, Irina?
I want to go back to the last part when you were talking about agents' goals, and you mentioned what's a comfortable mortgage or monthly payment for you. So coming from the WHS, my buyer class background, we do all the exercises, go buy the boat and look at what you're spending every month, like how could you really maximize your payment. And I have a buyer right now that's like, well, I still wanted to go to Starbucks and I want to keep mine at an unrealistic mortgage payment for Whatcom County. It is very, very low. However, we know how much she's approved for. realistic conversation,
Yes.
because I'm coming from my background, like, don't go to Starbucks. Like for a year, or like go once a month, like learn how to budget so that you can afford a home, because that's for you. How do you say that without like?
I'm having that exact problem right now.
So Irina is saying, how do you get people to be realistic?
Because I don't want to push them off the ledge either and have them come back to me and be like, oh, I'm underwater financially because you told me to get a house that had a higher, like,
Which I've never had.
Colleen
I've
Jeffries.
always had clients come back and say, I wish you would have pushed me, because now that we've been in here for 5 years, we wish we would have gone a little bit higher. Now that the market has gone so, like, where it's gone, wish we would have, like, I don't have a crystal ball.
Well, and I appreciate all of that. You're working with an unrealistic client. If they come back later, I'm gonna say, well, there's no way we could have known what was gonna happen with the market
Yeah.
at the time. Getting them to realistic prices is pretty difficult. Asking them to sacrifice Starbucks seems like not a lot. But my sense of humor, I would say, oh, do you want to live at Starbucks?
Can you live there?
Is that, can you set up a living room at Starbucks?
And work there.
Or I would say, wow, there's no privacy at Starbucks.
You can't walk around naked.
Well, some people have.
It
But
was
you're
one
not supposed to walk naked at Starbucks.
One time.
One time. Just one time.
don't shame Dawn.
I can't go back, but.
None.
You know, I'll give you a case in point.
Permanently
I had some clients, first-time home buyers. I'd known this young lady since she was a kid. They're gonna buy a house. I am working with them. It's a renovation loan, rehab loan. I call them renovation loans because I don't like the term rehab anymore. So renovation loan, and these are the days when they pay the people directly for the renovations. They don't, because people would do the renovations themselves and pocket the money, so they quit doing that. So anyway, so we're going along, and I'm working with them, and I see a new car. I said, you weren't supposed to buy a car. They go, what do you mean? I said, you can't have this car. Do you want to live in this car? No. Well, you will be in 2 years if you don't get rid of this car. So they took the car back. I was in shock. Someone took my advice. I was so happy. So we close, and they move in, and I'm taking over a move-in gift, and here's that darn car in the driveway. And I said, what did you do? They said, well, the guy held it for us. We still wanted the car. Was it 2 years even?
No.
I don't even know if they made it 2 years. The financial burden of a new car and a new house, getting a divorce, and they lost the home in a foreclosure. So how do you, I could never have done anything, but I told them.
Yeah.
So if they come to you, you say, remember when I said that it would just take a few Starbucks a month, or it would just take this much? Remember we said that when you buy a house, there's a lawnmower? You know, you need to buy draperies. We're tired of looking at your sheets in the windows. There's expenses that go with this house. Remember we talked about, I just try to remind them of the things I had brought up. Or say, remember it was between this house and the other house. The other house really would have served your needs better, but this one is the one you wanted. Remember we talked about that? Well, here we are now. What can we do today to make this better for you? And I just try and stay positive instead of going, I told you so, and the market's still changing. We don't know. Values are coming down. People are losing equity, and they paid too much for the house in the last 2 years, and now they're losing equity. All we can do is, I tell people now, I don't have a crystal ball, I have an 8-ball, and I do. I have an 8-ball on my desk. And when people say, what's the market? I do this and I turn it over, and there's something wrong with my 8-ball, because one thing comes up every time, ask again later. I'm not kidding. I have pictures. I've been trying to take a picture of all the different things it says, and it just keeps saying, ask again later. And I'm like, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? So my 8-ball is kind of smart, because my crystal ball is super cloudy right now. So sense of humor a little bit, but also, remember we talked about that? Well, what can we do today to make that better? Here are some options for how you can make that better.
So, similar question but different context. So specifically, the buyer I have has known my family for a while, has seen how we built our portfolio, and it's just, I want to do what you do, and I'm like, okay, cool, like let's get you a new place, that's your next goal. Well, she wants to keep her mortgage payment at her rent or lower. She's only paying $2,000 a month for 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I'm like, that's just not that's not realistic. And I had that conversation with her and she understood, but she was thinking it was gonna be like 24 or 25. Well, her payments are consistently coming in at like $3,000 to $3,600 for the type of home she wants, right? And she can afford that. Me being me, I'm like Irina. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna eat steak once a month. We're doing noodles. We're not going out, like all the things, right? Because that's just where my mom brain goes. But for her, it's like the end of the world. And I'm like, that's fine. We don't have to go this direction. We could go here. And she's like, well, I don't want to.
Exactly.
What do I? She asked me constantly, well, but not real estate. What would you do? And I'm like, I don't know how to tell you. Pull your shit together and budget better, right? But at the same time, I don't ever want to be responsible for pushing someone off a ledge they're not willing to jump off of.
I appreciate that. You're trying to get them to the realism. I know when I talk to clients, I will tell them, you know, I really like this house. However, I need to sleep. And I will lose sleep if I push you into a house that isn't right for you. And I don't want you laying in bed one night going, you know, Jan really liked this house, but I'm not sure I do. So I'll have that conversation saying, you know, what I would do is totally different. I wouldn't live in that neighborhood, but I'm not going to tell them that if they're happy with that neighborhood, right? But what I say is, and I think this is also a little bit generational, what are you willing to sacrifice? You sacrifice something to get your portfolio. What are you willing to sacrifice? And if they're not willing to sacrifice anything, then they're not going to have what you have.
No.
So I go through, what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to sell one of your vehicles? Are you to have a down payment? What are you willing to do? I understand not wanting too much of a payment because you never know what can happen down the road, but what are you willing to sell? What are you willing to give up? And oh, by the way, my first home was not my dream home. My dream home came, I gotta think of who I was married to. My dream home
Which
came
one?
You sound like me.
30, I think it was 30 years took me to get my dream home. And we had built Street of Dreams house, decided to sell it because I didn't like cleaning it. It was way too big. You know, you gotta take the bad with the good, and I didn't like the bad.
Yeah, I tell my clients I don't want to make them house broke. Yeah.
You don't want to make them house broke. You don't want it where one life event throws them out of the place.
Yeah.
But what are they willing to sacrifice? I know what I've seen generationally lately is, it would seem that there's a certain generation that wants everything their parents had today.
It's harder.
And my parents worked really hard. My dad got out of the Army and worked really hard over a lot of years to get the home that they had. And they only had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rambler. They never got the dream house ever. And I was able to achieve that, and they were thrilled I could. But we can't have what they had right away. And I know that I've been wondering, where are people getting all this money for these big down payments? And they're paying this their first home, and I think, what a blessing. But when my second home that we ever bought was $64,000. We had it built 1984, and by 1989, it doubled in my house payments, but the house was still worth $64,000. And then we went and bought a boat, and I got my BMW I'd always wanted, and we got a motorcycle. And we got nowhere because we couldn't afford the gas to go anywhere because we had all these toys. And my uncle, who was our realtor, had warned me about that. I wasn't a realtor yet. And you know what? It took the life out of us. We had to sell the boat, sell the motorcycle, kept the car. And we ended up in a lesser expensive house, much older home. What a lesson. And the credit cards were crazy. What a lesson. We were completely out of debt, and all we had was a house payment. So what were we willing to sacrifice to get ahead and to get our credit? We sold our home. That's a sacrifice. So I'm not saying, gee, good Jan. I'm saying you sacrificed something to have the portfolio.
I literally cried when I bought my first condo, not because I was happy, because I was putting my family of 5 in a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot condo. But I was so confident. We were getting such a great deal. I just knew I was like, this is going to be 18 months of hell, but it's what's going to get us forward. And like, you can't have that conversation candidly with someone else. I mean, very few people have it resonate.
It's hard. It doesn't
Yeah.
resonate with them, and I appreciate that, McKenna. I just tell them real world as much as I can. And I tell them, look, I'm an analytical. I look at the numbers. And you have to tell me if these numbers make sense to you or not. And I always say buying is an emotional decision, selling is a business decision. Does that make sense? I love it, I have to move in, I see my furniture in here. And a seller, it's a business decision. How much money are they gonna get when they're leaving the neighborhood? So I treat that as a business decision for them. Yes, the love letters, yes, everybody wants to move into our house. It's business. Is that helpful? Do you think that would help
That's
you?
really good.
So when you're negotiating, you can tell your buyers, you realize this is an emotional decision for you, but it's just a business decision for them. So don't put all of your emotion onto what you think the seller should be thinking about you, because they just want to get what they can get. So let's talk about some of the questions that we ask these buyers. These are buyer qualifying questions coming up. How long have you been looking? Is this just a new idea that on Christmas they said, hey, let's go buy a house, here's your Christmas gift? Or have they been looking for a long time? Where have you been looking? How have you been looking? Have you been going to open houses? Have you been looking on websites? Are you driving neighborhoods, looking in for sale signs? Who's been showing you houses? Have you been going to agents? Have you been going to open houses? Are you working with any of those agents? Are you currently under contract with another realtor? That's what I ask. Did you sign anything with them? Meaning, are you under contract with someone else? Did you see anything you liked? That's going to help you a lot. If they've seen something they like, or if they already own a home, it's good to see what home they have, to kind of see their decorations, and it kind of helps you see where they'd be moving into, what their style is. But have you seen anything you liked? But what kept you from buying it? Why didn't you write an offer? Because what they didn't do is just as important as what they did do. You didn't write an offer, or I have clients right now said we've written 5 offers. We've written 5 offers and none of them went through. Okay, so are you looking for a new realtor to negotiate on your behalf? Because after 5 offers, it's not our fault often, but maybe their agent isn't going to bat for them enough. Maybe they need a better defender. So then we ask them, describe your ideal home. What would be the best thing you could ever have? That's going to be in your future. It may not be tomorrow, but what's your ideal home? In the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, they have us do a page of questions that says, and each person does their own, and it says, do you need a garage? And you're supposed to, we use Skittles instead of M&Ms because they melt on people. So they get 20 Skittles, 40 Skittles.
30,
Yeah, I knew she'd know. 30 Skittles.
because I had to count them out.
And they get them in a little cup, and then they say, they'll put 3 Skittles on a box if it's really important, 2 or 1, okay? Then they'll say safe neighborhood, and then it'll say number of bedrooms, lot size, blah, blah, blah. And they can only use, they can't borrow from others, and they have to use all their Skittles to show what's most important. Then I have them take a picture of it, because then they want to eat the Skittles. So we have them take a
That'd be the
picture.
Starbucks sample.
We have them take a picture.
Right.
We have them take a picture of the chart, and then after they do that, we have them get together, people who are buying together, and look at them and how different they are. When they are free to make their own opinion, they tend to be a little bit different. And it's really cool to look at, and how each of them, you think we need a garage? I didn't think we needed a garage. Or does it need to be a 1-story house? Or the number of bedrooms, all that kind of stuff. And it just shows you how now you can go work with them. So I'm doing it with all my clients. I think it's kind of fun. But it shows what it is that is important to each of them, because it could be different. We used to do tours. We used to go around and look at all the houses that just came on the market. Every Wednesday morning in Skagit, we had a tour. And all the agents, we'd get in our cars and we'd go drive around the neighborhoods and look at all the new listings. It was fun, but I had always done it with a bunch of women from my office. And one day I went with a bunch of men from my office. Oh my gosh, what a different perspective. The men said, oh, the man wears the pants in that family. And I'm like, what does that mean? They said, the shop's bigger than the house. And I went, okay, never thought of that. But the way they were looking at a property was completely different from the way I was. And so it was a really good eye-opener for me. So what is it they're looking for, and what's important to them? That's what we want to know, what's important to them. And it could be a whole bunch of different reasons what's important and why. If you can't find everything you want, what are you willing to compromise on? Up front, find out what they're willing to give. Well, we don't have to have 4 bedrooms, we just kind of want an office space. Okay, so I can find you a 3-bedroom with a den, or 3 bedrooms, or I can find you a 3-bedroom house on a 4-bedroom, or 4-bedroom house on a 3-bedroom septic. And then, of course, that's a 3-bedroom plus an office. Okay. Full disclosure, right? What are you willing to compromise on? Okay, we'll give up the basement idea, or we'll give up a pool, or we'll give up something.
It's really fun during that game to then say, oh, we play this with the lender, interest rate hike. And then after they've shared, then they have to decide together what they're taking away.
Irina, I'm stealing that. You and Emily have made my day. You've taught me something new. Irina says when she's playing that game, they throw in a variable and say, oops, interest rates went up. What are you willing to give up? Oh, I'm stealing that. That is so
So
good.
do you actually play this with your clients?
Yeah.
I do when I teach first-time homebuyers.
That's the first time home
That's
buyer.
so cool. Except for all mine lately have been on Zoom.
Yeah.
Like, I've been teaching on Zoom for the
Well, my
last
first time
4
homebuyers
years.
class that I took, I was like, ridiculous. I don't remember like.
Well, really good. You guys are doing Washington State Housing Finance Commission classes. You can also do that. You have to go sit through a 6-hour stimulating class
It's
in
amazing.
Seattle. And then you come back and wonder why you did that. But there's such a good feeling of when they're asking all those questions and being able to impart all that knowledge to them. You cannot advertise. You're not there to recruit new clients, but they can take your card and they can still ask you questions.
Well, and I think my clients, I tell them I'm not their marriage counselor, so they have to figure it out, like, they have to find out what's important to them together. Like, individually, then find out, then come to me with their master list.
Joelle says she's not their marriage counselor. They gotta find it out on their own where to move their skittles. I love that. If money were no object, what have you always wanted? If money were no object. I also asked them about their lifestyle, which I've already checked on Facebook as much as I can. So I asked them this question about lifestyle. Is your home the one everybody comes to on Sunday for dinner? Is your backyard where all the kids play? That makes you happy? Then invest in and spend a little bit more in your home. But if you're interested in what I did, and you get a jet ski and a boat, a motorcycle, your activities are usually away from your home, well then spend less money on your home, and you have money left over to spend on your activities. Because if your activities take you mountain climbing and skiing and all these other things that cost money, your home will be an anchor and you won't enjoy it.
That's so good.
So spend more money on your toys and less money on the house. That's a sacrifice that you make for the fun you want to have.
Well, and then that, in addition to that, sorry I didn't raise my hand, but it immediately contradicts the whole commission breath thing too. Because you're right out the gate saying, I don't care, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, obviously we do, but we don't, right?
That's really good. We do care. Thank you for that. And also, let's say that they're over 55. They may not want their kids coming back home.
So they want to be in a 55 plus community.
They want to be an over 55. That's right, Joelle. Baby boomers are brilliant. We are the only generation that could find a way to have discrimination in housing.
Well, and I also ask them a lot if they like to travel, because if they're looking at like a house and they're gonna travel, then I say, who's gonna take care of your yard? Who's gonna winterize your house for you? Would you rather maybe be in a condo where all that's taken care of? Or would you like to try to find a company that can take care of it for you? So,
Insert Joel.
That's really
insert
helpful.
myself now.
Joelle's saying, hey, you gotta make sure that you've got services taken care of if you're gonna buy a house. But over 55 means their kids can't come home again. We have
20% of the neighborhood.
20% of the neighborhood that who's holding to that.
Okay.
That's my opinion, sorry, I shouldn't say that.
Well, the parent should say.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I had it happen where a woman, I think I told this in the other
Well, the
class.
grandkids can't stay more than a certain amount of time too.
The grandkids can only stay a certain amount of time, or children that are young have a time
Under
limit.
21.
They have an expiration date. So my client lived in her home up on Law Road, up on the hill, and she had 3 children, and her 2 boys were just lounging on the couch with their big dogs. And she walked with a cane, and the dogs would come through and swipe her and stuff. And her daughter was going to nursing school. So she wants to sell her home and move into something else. And she said, these doggone boys that I can't get them to go to work, and they're costing me a lot of money, but they're my sons. I said, do you still want them living with you? She goes, well, not if I had a choice. I said, well, you do. She goes, what do you mean? I said, let's get you into an over 55 development, and they can't live with you anymore. She said, but I really want to keep helping my daughter. I said, go to your doctor, find out if you need assistance for daily activities, and if you do, she can be your caregiver. And that's what they did. The daughter lives with the mom, and the boys don't.
No way.
Yep. She thinks I am a miracle worker. So, just as a buyer's agent, we're always thinking outside the box. We're always trying to problem solve, which is something you said you're very good at.
I would have come up with that solution, though, that's great.
Yeah, well, I had to sleep on it, but I didn't. But truly, I mean, where else can you discriminate in housing except in ageism? It's pretty interesting. So is there anything else they think I should know? Any other hobbies? Who all will be living in the property? So you don't want to discriminate based on family, how many children will be with you. I don't have kids, but I don't care if you ask me, but some people are pretty sensitive to that. Or if you ask them how many children they have, they're sensitive that you're judging them about their children. So I just say, who all will be living in the property? That takes me completely out of family, relationships, anything. Who all will be living there? There are some cultures that they like the Japanese culture, they expect their parents to help them pay for that property. So it's not considered discriminatory to say, and how much will your parents be bringing? You do that in the US and we're offended. We can do this on our own. So just know, is there anything else we need to know? Who else will be living in the property? Will you be needing an ADU? Will you have anyone be assisting you? Whatever. What else is there that I need to know? What hobby do you have? And again, do you have any valuables, or do you have pets, anything like that, where it could raise that insurance rate? So those are things you might want to ask them. So the first thing in this buyer appointment is you want to look at what the buyer's needs and wants are. Because what they need, what they want, isn't necessarily what they need. They want the 10-bedroom mansion, but they need a 3-bedroom. And helping them with that realism of getting them to say, okay, this is what we need, and this may not be the forever home. I call it the forever home. This isn't the last house you're gonna buy. You're in your 20s, you're gonna buy at least 4 to 5 more houses in your lifetime. So sacrifice now, get this one paid down, get the equity, fix it up, and move on to the next one. The buyer qualification, we want to talk to them about their motivation. They go, well, we're looking now, but we're not going to buy until our daughter's out of high school 2 years from now. Are they on your A list? No. Are you going to show them property today? Maybe not. Maybe you would. I will show them a couple of houses because I want to know what they're really looking for. What style and that kind of thing. So when it comes up in 2 years, I'm ready to go. But I'm still sending them monthly newsletter, or I'm sending them a monthly notice. Hey, how you doing? Just keeping in touch. I'm calling them. But if they're not buying for 2 years, they're not on my A list. So what's their financial picture, and what is their motivation? Same with the seller. If a seller says, we don't really need to sell, we just want to see what we can get for it, I'm not your girl. I only work for money. I don't work to market your property, I work to sell it. So if I'm going to work for you, I'm going to sell your property. I'm not just going to put it on the market.
So does that mean you make them write or fill out a seller's agreement right then and there before you get further into that conversation, if they just close it past their emotion right off the gate?
If they say that their motivation is just to test the market, then I'll say, I have an agent that's better at that than me. Because I don't have the personality for it. I'll send them to Joel. What you do to find the property, what we're going to do to find the property for them. That's on here. What are we going to do to help find the property? We're going to be looking at the multiple listing service. We're going to be checking FSBOs. We're going to be looking on Facebook Marketplace. We're going to be looking in a lot of places to help them find that property. How we assist them in getting the best price and terms. We want to explain to them how we're going to do that. What it takes to get to closing. Important. Here's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to bring money to the table. You're going to, most likely, you're going to need to follow these dates. You're going to need to take my instructions. You're going to need to call me back when I call you. You need to respond as quickly as possible. Some things are very time related, so you're going to need to respond to me. So what is the best way to communicate with you? What an easy question. There are people who don't text. There are people who don't have cell phones. There are people who have home phones. I don't have any of that. I don't have a home phone. There are people who don't email. So ask them how they want to communicate, because you can text them all day. I have an aunt that I text her and I don't get an answer for 2 days because she doesn't carry her phone on her hip like I do. She goes, oh, I just saw your text 2 days later. And we're like, 2 minutes text, right? So ask them how they want to be communicated with, and get the cell numbers or the numbers of both parties if there are two parties purchasing, because one may not get to talk to the other one. I do a lot of three-way calling so that I'm talking to both interested parties at the same time. If I can, if one of them's at work or whatever, I can. But I try to do three-way calling whenever I can. And then we tell them how we get paid for it. Here's how I get paid. I get paid at closing. I get paid a portion of the commission that the seller is providing, but ultimately you're the one that pays me. We're going to spend a lot more time talking about that. So you want to educate the buyer that you are displaying your knowledge. You're telling them what you know, what you're going to do for them. And also, it gives them more realistic expectations. That's one of our big jobs. If you do it up front, you don't have to deal with it every time you go out with them. Hopefully you're not going out 12 times like we used to. And you're doing more than just one house at a time. I call that a one-off. And it's really hard to do one house and then 2 days later look at another one, and then 3 days. I try to group them together as much as I can. In this market, in this town, you can look at more than one house. There's going to be something else in their price range or in their wants and needs category that's going to work for them. They're going to be asking you certain questions over and over again. You're going to see these from buyers every time. You're going to get a script. You're going to start learning to say the certain things you need to do. How many of you are moms in the room? Brush your teeth. Go to bed. Do your homework. Those are scripts. Take a shower.
Put on deodorant.
Put on deodorant.
I have boys.
Those are all, she has boys. Joelle has boys. Those are scripts when you repeat them over and over again, but you do it over and over again, right? Same thing, you say the same thing every time. No, I'm not interested. Right? Answer the phone, I'm not interested. You say the same thing every time. So don't be worried about the word script. You use them all the time. And you just start saying them over and over and over again. So you'll need to have responses to the same questions that come all the time. You can have pretty much the same scripted response. I don't need to meet with you first. I already know the house I want to see. Just meet me there. What would you say? What would be a script for that?
I'm sorry, I meet with all my clients to make sure I know their expectations and they know mine.
Joelle says really well. I meet with all my clients at my office first so I can show them, I can learn their expectations and I can show them mine. Did I repeat that right?
Yep.
I tell them all my tools are at the office. So I meet you here first at the office, and because there might be other houses for you to see. And if they don't want to, I just refer them to someone else. You might as well still make money. We do this for money, right? I'm safe to say that. I will refer them to someone else saying, I'm sorry, I only work if I've met a client at my office first, but I know other agents that will meet with you, so let me get you someone. And there will be somebody else that'll do it. I just don't do it that way. Why do I need to talk to a lender and know what I can afford?
Do you though?
So what do you tell them? What do you think would be a good script for that?
I would say that any seller is gonna wanna see that you have needs and the ability and the forethought to get, have a pre-approval letter or have something in writing that you have gone through the process and this is what you can afford. That way it's for a solid offer, right? That they're not gonna fail financing at the end.
That's really good, Vanessa. You're telling them, the lender, the reason we do this is because the seller would really like to see something from the lender that you're pre-approved. Think about this. You're selling something on eBay. and it's for $10,000, you would want to know the person had the money to do that, right? Before you gave them that property. Give them another example of that trade-off, but that's right, Dennis, that was a good answer. Just say, hey, you know, the sellers are gonna wanna see that you're pre-approved. They're not gonna take their house off the market because you believe what you can afford. Because what you can afford doesn't matter to the seller. The seller's making a business decision. And it's not good business for them to take what you can afford. Maybe switch them and change the shoes, so to speak. I don't need to talk to a lender, I'm a cash buyer.
Verify your accounts.
Barbara says verify their accounts.
Yeah, like, show me your account name blocked out, and that will go in the contract.
We'll have to submit a proof of funds or evidence.
And Vanessa says submit a proof of funds. But what would we tell, what else would we tell them maybe? What would a seller expect?
Evidence if they have the money.
Vanessa says evidence that they have the money. And they go, well, no, we're not gonna provide that. Say, well, you must provide that you have the money to close. Because if we go all the way to closing and the money is contingent, because you have stocks and the stock market just hit low, all of a sudden they don't have the money. So we could say, that is awesome, you're a cash buyer. What source is the cash coming from? Is it in the bank? Do you have $500,000 in the bank? And if they say, no, I have it in stocks, or I had a car accident, I'm waiting on a settlement, those are, yeah, had that happen. They are all contingent. A seller, think about it as a seller. You would want to know where that money's coming from, right? And then you nod. You'd want to know where the money's coming from. The seller has a right to know. I think it's awesome you're a cash buyer. We can get this closed in 2 weeks. Everything's wonderful. However, the sellers are going to require some sort of proof, and they're going to want to make sure that it is not, that your funds are non-contingent.
Seems like their objection is usually with you asking for it, because
Yeah.
because they assume that you don't want to provide your services to them until they show you that they have the money.
And so they're the ones that seem a little bit offended, Emily, that they have, that you've requested it.
It's not
So if
your
you throw
requirement.
it on the seller,
Exactly.
yeah. So if you say, hey, the seller is gonna wanna see proof of that, I need to know where those funds are coming from, that this transaction, cash or not, is gonna require that. And what's interesting is often you find they are contingent funds.
It's a kind of a don't shoot the messenger.
It's not me asking.
Right.
It's not me asking. It's not up to me. It's up to the seller.
It's not
to
your
decide.
requirement.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not my
And,
requirement.
and like McKenna says, don't shoot the messenger. It's not me asking, I'm letting you know the expectations as we go forward. So you paying cash, that sounds great. That doesn't mean you're gonna get a better deal either. But because you're paying cash, the seller has a right to know what's going to secure that property. They have that right, and so I have to impart that to you. And then it takes it off of us, that we're going, hey, how much money you got? Take me to dinner.
Yep.
So there are scripts. The ABR provides scripts. Reback provides scripts that you can use with all of these types of questions. So you want to stick to your script. The other part of that question was, that we first asked, was I'm at the house, I'm qualified, I want you to meet me there. Is that something you're going to do? Maybe not. If it's your listing, it might behoove you to do that because you told your seller you're going to help procure a buyer, but take someone with you. It's just a safety thing.
Isn't it easier just to say, you know, my office has a policy, but we need it?
Super easy to say it's a policy.
Yeah.
And make it one.
If I'm the listing agent and I'm gonna meet somebody there myself, I make them send me a copy of their ID, and then I give it to the listing office, or to my office too.
All right, so Joelle is saying that she gets a copy of their driver's license or their ID. How I describe that is I say, look, as we move through this process, the first thing customers are going to want is a copy of driver's license, so we just get it up front for them. Takes it completely off of me that I want to know about that. You have your hand up.
You know, cautionary tale, I was young, I was first year in the business. Somebody was like, oh, I gotta lead off internet, you want it? Sure. Drive out to, what was that, Maple Falls? About 3 minutes. No internet
He
service.
stole my heart. No cell phone service.
real sketch balls, and we were looking at a condemned property where there was lots of like weird, it was scary. I said, you can go in and look by yourself. It was really scary. So just be, like, I don't pack, I don't have like a gun or anything, but just, yeah, be super mindful.
Well, mine changed
And
when
hold on, I'm gonna say something, because you didn't raise your hand. Joelle and I know each other well, so when I tease her, she knows where I'm coming from, so I appreciate that, because it sounds disrespectful, and I don't mean to be. But it's really important, Dawn, I see your hand, it's really important that we be careful. And not just when we're working with buyers, think about this, what other business do people just take perfect strangers in their car and go somewhere out the middle of nowhere? Okay, second thing, where in any business do we show up at someone's home and go in the door, we've never met them, and let them show us every room in their house? We don't know where the windows or the doors are. So listing appointments, I always take a newbie with me. And so, because I've talked to clinical psychologists that work with sex offenders, and I said, why do they go after realtors? And the reason she said was very simple, because they can. Because we do not protect ourselves enough. So we'll get on some more safety issues. I'm gonna go to Don first, and I'll come back to you.
Two things. One, in Montana, when I flew out there, we went to buy a house, realtor asked me for my driver's license before I could get into their vehicle for insurance purposes. So it was a nice, easy transition, and they left a copy of it at their office. The second thing, even myself as a man, I will not go to a home alone with a perfect stranger that I met over the internet. So I would not expect you ladies to do that, and always be aware of the unexpected.
So Don says in Montana, they took your driver's license. Who was your agent in Montana?
Her name was, oh gosh, I don't know.
When you think of it, tell me, because
Yeah.
I've taught in Montana, I know about
Oh,
your Montana
okay.
agents. Second thing, that you don't go alone. So may I ask you a question as a man?
Yeah,
Would you be uncomfortable if you were going to a home where there was just a woman in the house?
absolutely. I
Would you
don't
feel
know
as
that
though
there's
that
just a
was-
woman in the house.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that,
Yeah.
how you would approach that, so you protect yourself as,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I never
I
thought
think,
of
I
that.
think, I'm just gonna say there are, whether it be
Too many
mace or
variables.
pepper spray
Mhm.
or anything, we should all be very mindful and cognitive of our,
Be aware of your
Physical
safety.
well-being,
And so what the clinical psychologist told me was travel in pairs. The reason that agents have been assaulted is they're alone. I'm teaching, so I don't teach in heels anyway. I don't do open houses in heels. I don't wear all the jewelry when I'm in an open house, or when I'm at a listing appointment, I stay very agnostic about all of my looks. I make sure that I park in a place that I can get away. My keys are in my pocket, along with my taser. That's how I operate. So I'm gonna go to Joelle, Barbara, and then McKenna.
I was gonna say, like, the reason I changed the way I did business was I went to Concrete, out in the middle of nowhere still,
That's like Maple Falls.
for a listing appointment, and luckily, my son's dad lived like 10 minutes away, so when I dropped my son off, I said, this is where I'm gonna be, if you don't hear from me in 35 minutes, come find me, here's the address. But it was somebody who trapped me in his house, and that was before I got my concealed and everything. And luckily, my ex-husband and my son came and found me, but then now I either take my fiance or somebody with me, whether they go in the house with me or not. They might just sit in the car, and a lot of people will look at me and they're like, oh, they're my business partner, or they just are riding along. I mean, I come up with every excuse in the sun, but I mean, I conceal, even concealing though, I still won't go by myself.
So Joelle says just don't go alone. I don't go alone. I was in an open house and my husband happened to be with me. And someone came up at the end of the open house in a circular driveway, and I was standing there, and this guy comes up and he's in a big red pickup truck, or a Blazer, and the really deep window. And I'm talking to him, and for some reason, my husband had walked around behind the house. And this is out in West Mount Vernon. Nobody can hear you scream from there. It's a farmhouse right there. And he starts talking to me, and you know that, I call it my hinky meter. Something felt weird. Just that something felt weird. And he's talking to me, and all of a sudden he goes, get! And this massive dog comes at me through the window.
What?
big, like a mastiff,
Mhm.
really big. The head was bigger than the guy's, I mean, it was
Oh,
huge. And it just is not listening to, oh, honey, baby dog. It was not into that from me. And he opened the door as this dog is rapidly trying to get to me. And just then, you know that TV show Touched by an Angel, like when they talk, the light just beams on them?
Yeah.
Around the corner comes my husband with a beam of sunlight on him.